All right. So I'll keep an eye on the waiting room and let people in as they come. So thanks again for being with us today. I'm Carrie Gatto. I'm CEO of Big Picture Realty, which is a team of Keller Williams Realty. And I love to help people grow their net worth, build financial security and financial independence through making smart decisions around buying and selling real estate. I'm also an investor, and I know from experience that to be successful in real estate, it's so important to have a team to support you in your goals. And I've assembled a dream team of experts in real estate and investing to discuss important factors when it comes to being an absentee landlord. All right, so I have, I believe, muted everyone today just so we have less background noise. However, we certainly encourage your questions. Please use the chat box for questions and comments, and we have time reserved at the end to make sure that we get to everything. And in fact, to get to know our audience a little better today, I'd love if you could just tell us real quick in the chat box if you are an absentee landlord currently. Just write yes or no. And if you're so inclined, you can say how many properties you own as well. That would just kind of give us a better idea of who we're talking with today. Thank you so much. And as you're doing that, I'll move on here. So if you're here, you probably already understand the power of real estate investing for financial independence. But if you're just starting out, that's great too. I would also encourage you to sign up for my next webinar, which is called Why Invest in Real Estate on April 27th. I'll send you all a link to that. And there's some other great investing webinars coming up in the next few months that I would encourage you to register for. And if you are an experienced investor, you know that the bigger your portfolio, the more questions come up. So here are some of the questions we'll tackle today. So if I'm moving out of the area, should I hold or sell my investment property? Who can I rely on to cost effectively manage my property to make it a truly passive investment? And with COVID, is it a good time to buy or sell real estate and investment real estate? What numbers do I need to analyze in order to make the most informed decisions? What other investment opportunities might be available to me around real estate investing that I haven't even explored? And if I do decide to do this, how can I prepare and make it the most profitable experience possible? Can I retire when I want using real estate as part of my overall investment strategy? So to help answer these questions and more, allow me to introduce our panel today. So first we will hear from Jamie Thompson, who is a property manager and rental agent with Thompson Realty. He's going to talk about how he takes the stress out of real estate and make it a truly passive income stream. What could be better? And then I'll talk about the multifamily market right now and how to maximize your profit during ownership and when you sell. And then we'll hear from Wolfgang Cease, who is a specialist in Delaware State Trusts, or DSTs. He'll talk about this investment opportunity that you might not have considered related to minimizing tax exposure in real estate investing. And then Emily Claire is a financial advisor with Edward Jones. She will help you plan and organize your finances for any kind of investment decisions. And to round out our dream team, we have Sarah Hartline from Margolis and Bloom. She's an estate attorney and is here to help you understand the legal ramifications of your real estate holdings on your estate. So, success in real estate, like I mentioned, really necessitates having a great team. For absentee landlords, a great property manager is worth their weight in gold because they are the key to that time freedom we're all looking for and will also allow you to scale up your portfolio. So just like any profession, however, there are good ones and bad ones, and Jamie happens to be the best in this area. So Jamie, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah.
Let me get my slides up. Are those on? All right, so a quick market update. This is based on year-to-date March 30th, looking at 2020 for listings through March 30th and 2021. On-market availability has gone up almost 50% compared to last year. This I'll get into with the market impacts in the next slide. So right now, compared to 4,900 units last year, we've got 7,500 units in the market this year. Average days on market is significantly is actually down compared to last year, due to that volume as well. You've got more units on the market, so they're moving through the market faster. List price is also down. That's a big one, where we're seeing anywhere between a 10 to 25% reduction in rent price by market. One of the things this metric does not account for is landlords that have made deals for existing tenants to retain them, which we did see a lot happening over the winter and with the moratorium in place. And then the absorption rate, that's the volume of units that are being absorbed into the market based on the amount of time. We've got about 3 to 4 months worth of market units in the market right now, which is not unusual going into the September timeframe. You're starting to see units come on the market now for September availability for students coming back to the area and families that are going to be moving for school. So the rental market update continuing, market impacts from this year. Obviously, COVID was a significant impact for everyone. The eviction moratorium, the forbearance moratorium on properties, and the trend for working from home. We saw a lot of people leaving the Boston area as things shut down. Time-wise, leases coming up in September, people moved further outside of 95, even to New Hampshire, Vermont, and Western Mass, to take advantage of rent savings, as well as the in-demand amenities of space for office space in home, as well as outdoor amenities like porches, decks, yard space, and getting closer to outdoor activities, since most indoor activities were shut down. A lot of landlords have been impacted by past due rents, again, with the moratorium, as well as layoffs and income issues. That has created a glut of issues with past due rents. Increased vacancy across the market, and again, depending on the cities, we're seeing rent prices down between 10 to 25%. Again, cities and bedroom number. Obviously, one bedrooms are seeing a lower percentage drop as compared to 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms. In the market right now, we're seeing an increased behavior where landlords are paying the full broker fee. Applicants are negotiating for the owner to pay full fees if they pay for the full fee if they haven't been advertised that way. We do see that continuing in the short term. Again, the eviction moratorium, the Mass State moratorium expired in October. All tenants now are covered by the CDC moratorium, which was extended to June 30th. This does require your tenants to file paperwork. There is forms that they have to submit to you. That is available on the CDC website. I do recommend that if they have not done that, you talk to your attorneys. If you're looking at an eviction situation, that you discuss this with your attorney based on what options you have available to you. If you are dealing with tenants that have payment issues right now, I highly recommend you look at the assistance programs. RAFT used to be $4,000. They've upped that to $10,000 as part of the CARES Act, and also the ERPA, Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Massachusetts just started that the past couple of weeks. That extends the assistance to allow for a broader qualification scale. Now, again, for landlords that are dealing with tenants that are having trouble paying rent, these are great opportunities to keep good tenants in the units and to make up for past rent until they can get to a place where they can cover current rents. Property management. One of the benefits of property management is obviously time. The key item that we focus on is taking the stress of property management off of you and taking all the items that are time crunches off your hands so that you can focus on the property as an asset and an investment. Obviously, the volume of items that you have to deal with on a regular basis with property management, tenant activities, general maintenance and repairs, monthly expenses, bills, electric, any common utility services, landscaping, snow removal, contractor management across the board for basic activities to infrastructure things, to full unit turnovers, heating systems, roof work, anything major or expanding the unit and investing into depreciable updates. Long-term improvements, again, talking roof, siding, things like that. With tenant turnover, you've got the added volume of marketing the units, handling leads and screenings and showings. This is also part of what we do as for property management. And then also market knowledge, staying on top of the key amenities that are in the market and in demand, as well as pricing. Obviously, pricing is going to be a big item that's changed in the market over the past year, and we don't expect to see a strong return until we go into next year. Second activity that we prioritize is optimizing your return on investment. Again, maintaining your market rents, keeping tenants in your units right now is a priority. Vacancies are going to be your #1 expense after general maintenance that are going to hit your return on your investment. Rents are going to be based on historically location. Now that is less of a demand from them being in the Boston area as it is to being in areas where more activity is available to them. Number of bedrooms and the layout of the unit, the quality and condition of the unit, the amenities, and then also market demand and competition. So location historically has been driven by commuter access to the MBTA and being in Boston. That has changed with COVID. We saw last year and going into this year a higher demand for people moving out of the area. As things start to open up, we're expecting that to return back to getting into Boston and being close to Boston. But working from home and other amenities that businesses are offering to their employees has pushed people out of the area. In-demand amenities, outdoor space, having a private deck or an area where they can go out to sit and be outside, especially with the lockdowns and not being allowed to go out as much. And then office space, having an extra room or a smaller area that could be used as an office space for working from home have been a big demand item that we've seen. Then your expenses and depreciation. Again, in order to optimize your return, you've got to manage your expenses, keeping those expenses down. And again, as we said, vacancies are a big thing right now, and also tenants not paying rent. You've got your operational and seasonal expenses, so month to month, and then landscaping, snow removal, infrastructure and structural repairs. Where's the wear and tear on the property? What are the next big ticket items you have to focus on for keeping the property up to date? And those are things like roofs, heating systems, air conditioning if you've got central AC in the property, paint, siding, and obviously unit turnover when you're updating a unit between tenants. And all those times, consider the value of the expense and investment over their usable life. Don't look at it just as a loss of a money you have to dump into the property. Look at it as what's the intrinsic value of that investment and how does it affect the rent price that you've got. The other thing to look at is where are the opportunities to save some money. Mass saves is a huge opportunity for insulation, heating and cooling. There's a lot of opportunity of having mass saves come in to look at the property and get discounts as well as low interest rate loans for some updates. There's a lot of activity around solar and mini split units with heat pumps to offset expenses with heat and electric going on right now. Third item we focus on is maintaining tenancy. Again, vacancies are going to be your biggest expense after your regular expenses. So maintaining tenancy with existing tenants and getting new tenants in as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. Again, the key to maintaining tenancy is having open communication with tenants, working and staying on top of their requests and general maintenance, and then responding to unplanned events promptly and keeping the tenants up to date. COVID's been a big test for this. Tenants unable to pay rents, being open to working with them to find assistance programs. Good tenants aren't, it's not just, I have seen a number of good tenants impacted by the ability to pay, and we've worked with them to get benefits and help them stay on their feet and continue to pay the rent. Obviously, the landlord's expenses haven't gone away, and neither have tenants' other expenses. So in summary, the value of property management is the option to recover your time. That I think is the biggest return from a property management perspective. And then optimizing your return, the key item there is going to be market knowledge and then demand for amenities and pricing. And looking to the future of the property, what to invest in on the property from an amenities perspective on a per unit basis, and also in the property itself from a structure and depreciable investment aspect. And you can get in touch with me. We are right here in Medford, Massachusetts. My email and phone number, and I will put that into the chat.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Uh-oh, you might hear my dog. Okay, so as a real estate consultant, my goal is to help you make smart, well-informed decisions around buying and selling your real estate. And even during your ownership, I can help you track your portfolio and maximize your returns. And one of the primary ways that I help my clients is by having my finger on the pulse of the market. Over the long term, the real estate market is pretty steady, but it does change daily, monthly, and of course, yearly. Right now, it's especially interesting to see what's happening during these very unique times. So these are the year-over-year statistics for multifamilies in Massachusetts. So starting from the left on the top there, that chart is showing number of units, and inventory is down about 13% from last year at this time, even though more listings have been taken year to date, which is kind of interesting. In other words, the inventory is being absorbed by the market at a higher rate, which is exactly what the second graph on the top shows. The absorption rate is 8% higher than last year. And we have only 1.5 months worth of supply currently, meaning that if no additional listings came on the market, it should take only about 6 weeks to sell all the available inventory. So just like with all kinds of properties across the board right now, inventory is in short supply. And on the bottom, the chart on the left shows the number of units that have sold year to date, which is about 20% higher than last year. So it seems there's a lot of demand for rental real estate right now. The average days on market and the middle on the bottom also indicates a healthy seller's market, only 44 days on average to sell a multifamily. And anything below 6 months is considered a hot seller's market. And then lastly, we have average sales price. It's actually down about 6% from last year. This could be due to the reduced rates that Jamie mentioned, but it also depends on the city and the town. So if you're interested in getting a market report for your area or a CMA on your property, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to run that for you. And by the way, if you are planning to invest in a different market, I work primarily in Greater Boston, but I have a terrific network across the country of agents who can help you in your market. So let me know and I can refer you to one or more agents wherever you're interested in buying. Another service that I provide is investment property analysis. If you're buying, holding, thinking about selling, making upgrades, refinancing, all these decisions become a lot easier when you have clarity around the numbers. So for example, this is one spreadsheet that I use and I share with clients to track expenses, cash flow, and return on investment. It's virtually foolproof and takes only about 5 minutes to analyze a property. You can also play around with the numbers, which is great for checking out different scenarios and how it will affect your bottom line. I have other worksheets and other webinars for flipping properties and for the BRRRR method as well. And if you join my Facebook group, Ready, Set, Invest, you'll find a lot of additional tools and resources on there. So talking about increasing your profit margin during ownership, if you haven't already, it's a great time to refinance. With money being so cheap these days, you could lower your monthly payment and increase your profit margin, or you could pull cash out to buy another property. There may very well be a wave of foreclosures following the pandemic, so it would definitely be smart to have some cash on hand available for opportunities. And interest rates are going up, so don't wait to do this. There are always things you can do to attract a higher caliber of tenant and a higher rent, as Jamie was just talking about. However, you certainly don't want to over-improve for your market. So the property is a business and every dollar in should give you an exponential return, right? So depending on whether you want to rent or sell, Jamie or I can consult with you, help you evaluate the upgrades that you can do to attract the best tenant and maximize your profit. You could do some of the work yourself if you're so inclined, or simply hire Jamie to coordinate the work for you. So especially if you're buying a property with vacant units or you have a tenant vacating, it's a great time to think about doing this. All right, so let's talk about some exit strategies. A lot of multifamily owners will ask me about condo conversion. So, whoops, I'll just mute someone there. And I know it's because the condo prices can look very appealing in those, new developments, but often owners don't realize the cost of renovations it takes to obtain the high-end quality finishes that condo buyers today are looking for. Therefore, the profit margins can actually be fairly slim relative to the risk of doing this. The cost of labor and materials has also increased over recent years, and $200 to $250 per square foot is almost like the minimum right now for a high-end condo conversion. So for 1,000 square foot unit, you'd be putting in easily at least $200,000. It also will take on average a year, maybe more, depending on the city or town's regulations. For example, in Somerville, you might know that they passed a regulation a couple of years ago that added various steps to the conversion process. And that meant it could take up to 7 years for a conversion to be completed, which made Somerville far less attractive to the condo developers. Also, just the precariousness of the condo market right now means it might not be the best timing. The condo market has sort of cooled in the past year. Buyers are looking more for single families and in the suburbs. So certainly nobody knows what the market will be like in a year or two. And therefore, in a lot of cases, I find it's better to sell as a multifamily. It's less work, less risk, and you can get the same or even more profit in many cases. And I do have a great strategy for listing and selling multifamilies that makes it less inconvenient for tenants, which is often a concern that comes with that. However, if you are still interested in doing a condo conversion, just make sure to consult with an agent who knows the market, knows what buyers are looking for, because a myriad questions will come up during the process, and it can be very overwhelming. And even one wrong choice could cost you tens of thousands of dollars when it's on the market. One of my clients right now is doing a 5-unit conversion. And even though it's his 3rd condo conversion, we're just in constant communication, about the layout, the parking situation, how many bathrooms, so many things come up, and all the selling points that can attract or deter buyers. A great way to minimize your tax exposure and maximize proceeds from a sale is by doing a 1031 like-kind exchange. When you sell an investment property, the proceeds of the sale are subject to capital gains tax. And if you're looking at a big profit, it can be a lot of money. The only way to avoid paying taxes altogether is simply not to make money, but no one wants to do that. So you can defer paying taxes on your gains indefinitely by doing a 1031 exchange, which means that you reinvest the proceeds of the sale into another real estate investment property. You can reinvest all of the proceeds or a portion of it, and you do have to abide by the strict time frame that the IRS gives, which is 45 days to ID a property and 180 days to close on the property. And Wolfgang is going to elaborate on this in just a moment. But I will say that the best way to do it, especially in a hot seller's market, is to list your existing property subject to finding a suitable replacement property. This really takes the time pressure off. And it means that the buyer of your current property has to just follow your lead in terms of the timing of the closing. If you'd like to set up a needs analysis call, just drop me an email, call my cell phone, and I'd love to connect and learn more about your real estate needs. I will also put my contact information in the chat, and we'll send it out after the webinar is over. I'm now going to turn it over to Wolfgang Spies with Great Point Capital for more information on 1031 exchanges. Thank you so much.
Perfect. And thank you, Carrie, for putting this roundtable together, and all the other panelists for participating. All right. So My name is Wolfgang Cease, and I am a wealth advisor that specializes in 1031 exchanges and other uh, tax deferral strategies. And I'm with Great Point Capital, and it's based out of Chicago, and I'm based here in Beacon Hill, um, the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston. Here's some disclosures. All right, here's a outline of what we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about Great Point Capital, why you should care about 1031 exchanges, what a Delaware statutory trust is, and hopefully we'll have time for a couple of case studies. So who is Great Point Capital? It's a boutique investment banking firm out of Chicago, and we specialize in tax deferral strategies, specifically 1031 exchanges, passive solutions for 1031 exchanges, and opportunity zone investments. We also have an investment banking department as well as a trading operation. And who am I? So again, my name is Wolfgang Cease. I manage our New England operations for Great Point Capital out of Beacon Hill. I call myself a brick and mortar financial advisor because 99% of my clients are high net worth real estate investors that are looking for tax deferral strategies. I'm also a landlord and real estate investor myself, both passively and actively. And I have personally used the 1031 to help build my real estate portfolio. So as both Carrie and Jamie have mentioned, that the real estate market these days, it's very competitive. There's a low inventory of product, and for the most part, real estate prices have regained all of their value and then some since the economic crisis of 2008. And as people grow older, as the demographics change and people grow older, they're looking to get out of being an active landlord and move towards being passive. And with that, they've got massive gains in their real estate, and finding a suitable exchange property has become more and more difficult as there's more and more people out there looking for properties to exchange into. So what is a 1031 exchange? Carrie talked about it for a minute. It's basically a strategy to defer your capital gains indefinitely by purchasing a like-kind exchange investment property. And we'll go more into that here. And then, well, I'll give you an example of this is why should you care? So this is an example of somebody who pays taxes and somebody who does execute a 1031 exchange. So this example has the seller had purchased this asset for $400,000. They've taken $250,000 in depreciation. So their adjusted basis is $150,000. So they get a compelling offer to sell for $1.1 million, which leaves a taxable gain of $700,000. Now, long-term capital gain is tax rate is 20%. So that's $140,000. You've got the 3.8% Medicare investment income tax from the Affordable Care Act, which is $36,100. You have to recapture 25% of the depreciation, which is $62,500. And your total taxes due would be $238,600, leaving $861,400 to walk away from the transaction with if you paid taxes. Now, I did not put a state tax in there because I'm sure some people on the call here today are live in New Hampshire, potentially another tax-free state. But if you were in Massachusetts, you would have another $40-ish thousand in taxes that would bring your net proceeds down to $820,000. So you walk away at the closing table with roughly $820,000 as a Massachusetts resident. Whereas if you did a like-kind exchange at 1031, you would have the entire $1.1 million to reallocate into another investment property. So what qualifies for an exchange? Rental property, commercial real estate, raw land, business real estate, and certain fractional indirect ownership units such as DSTs. All of those do satisfy the IRS requirements for doing a like-kind exchange. What does not qualify? Stocks, bonds, fix and flip, since they're not long-term gains, your primary residence, and real estate investment trust. So those do not qualify to do a 1031 exchange. So you cannot exchange your primary residence. So that is not on the table. As Carrie had spoke about, there's a strict timeline, and the IRS does not matter if day 45 or day 180 land on a Sunday or Christmas or Hanukkah or any holiday. You need to ID or close prior to that if the title company is not open that day to close. So as Carrie had mentioned, you have 45 days to ID your new property. Once you've ID'd that property, you have an additional 135 days to close on that asset, making a grand total of 180 days. Day 0 is the close of your sale of your asset. And what are the rules to do a 1031 exchange? So there's 3 main rules. You have to replace the value of what you sold. So if you sold something for $1 million, you have to buy something worth that is, the purchase price is at least $1 million. You have to replace the equity. So if you had, on that example of $1 million, you had $500,000 in debt and $500,000 in equity. Your new investment would have to have $500,000 at the minimum of equity. And using that same example, you have to replace that amount of debt that you sold your relinquished property for. So in that example, you had $500,000 of debt, so you would have to take out a loan of at least $500,000 for an active managed property, or a non-recourse loan for at least $500,000 on a passive solution such as a Delaware statutory trust. So, and there's an additional rule, actually 3 of them, on the first 45 days of identifying a new property to exchange into. The 3 property rule is by far the most popular that I see out there, and it's just as it sounds. You can pick up the 3 properties and close on 1 to 3 of them to satisfy your exchange. The second one, which I see quite often, especially with Delaware statutory trust, which we'll speak about here shortly, is the 200% rule. So if you sell an asset for $1 million, you can identify any amount of properties up to a grand total of $2 million. So in theory, you could identify $100,000 pieces of property. The third rule is the 95% rule. That means simply put, means you can identify any amount of properties. And the catch here is you have to close on 95% of what you identify. So it's not a practical rule. In fact, I've never used that rule, or I've never seen anybody use that rule in practice. So what is a Delaware statutory trust? In 2004, the IRS came out with a ruling, 2004-86, that said that you could exchange into a Delaware statutory trust if that trust was set up and satisfied all the requirements for the IRC 1031 part of the tax code. And what is a Delaware statutory trust? It's an institutional grade asset that's institutionally managed. It's completely passive. It's fully occupied, or at the minimum stabilized. And if we're talking apartment buildings, multifamily, it's generally a Class A, Class B plus. These are not value add assets. and it gives the investor access to institutional grade assets. And I'll just give an example of an Amazon distribution center, like $100 million Delaware statutory trust. None of us here can go purchase that asset, but with a Delaware statutory trust, if you're an accredited investor, you could purchase a sliver of that asset for as little as $100,000 and participate with all the other large investors on an asset that you normally would not be able to participate in, especially involving a 1031 exchange. So this gives accredited investors, especially Great Point Capital has basically a menu of 40 plus Delaware statutory trusts with varying sectors and geographic regions in the United States with varying equity and debt levels. So we have everything from all cash deals to 87% LTV deals. So we could blend a portfolio to basically meet anyone's requirements to satisfy the 1031 tax code. So the characteristics, I've already spoke of a few of them already. It's completely passive. You gain from the expertise of institutional ownership and management. This is a huge one, non-recourse debt. So if you're selling a property, we had mentioned one earlier, $1 million asset that has $500,000 in debt and $500,000 in equity, you have to replace both the $500,000 in debt and equity to satisfy the requirements. That debt with a Delaware statutory trust is non-recourse debt. So you satisfy the IRC requirements and also you free up your balance sheet and your credit report, and you can go, that $500,000 is off your balance sheet. So that's a huge benefit of Delaware statutory trust. And diversification, we have programs as low as $50,000 minimums. Generally, they're $100,000. It's not a blind pool. These are set up already. And when you decide to sell when the Delaware statutory trust goes full cycle and the asset is sold, you can either exchange into a new Delaware statutory trust, you can call carry and buy a new multifamily, or you can just take the cash and pay taxes. So you are not married to the DST. This is just a quick example of what a hypothetical DST, a Class A multifamily in a top U.S. market. They purchased the asset for $80 million. It's got 40 debt, 40 million equity. It's going to distribute somewhere between 4 and 6% annualized, paid monthly, and they're going to increase cash flow by strong management and also small value adds to the asset. This is a hypothetical menu of DSTs. This is just hypothetical, but as you can see, we have everything from LTVs of all cash to 83% on this hypothetical menu. The darling of the group is multifamily, and it will continue to be the darling, but about 51% of Delaware statutory trusts are multifamily. Then it's triple net right after that. Then it's industrial, and then we have self-storage is very popular. Senior living is very popular, and and then a trickling of hospitality, which is not popular, and student housing, which is not that popular these days due to the pandemic. So who's a typical DST investor? What do they look like? They own and appreciated real estate assets, generally looking at a very large tax bill. They're estate planning. They're looking towards retirement. They're sick of the terrible T's, toilets, tenants, and trash. They're looking for passive cash flow. They're looking to escape a local real estate market. As I mentioned, these DSTs are located all across the country. Although I would say in the past year, Florida and Texas have become very popular because they're tax-free states, and there's a lot of activity, especially in the multifamily area. And they're having difficulty, as Carrie had spoken about, in finding property to exchange into. So it's easy to sell your property right now, but finding an asset to exchange into is becoming more increasingly difficult. And lastly, I'll do a real quick investor case study. So this is a married couple, 71 years old, wife's in good health. The husband recently had a health scare. They've got a child in their 50s and a grandchild in college. They've amassed roughly $100 million real estate portfolio, mostly debt-free, located in one geographic area. They've developed and managed these assets themselves. Their only child has zero interest in real estate and zero interest in taking over the family business. And they've just received a compelling offer on one of their assets. So their offer they received was $20,750,000. And they've got $11,250,000 in debt. So what we've done, hypothetically speaking, is spread them out into a portfolio of different debt levels and different asset types and different geographic areas of the country. And we've matched their LTV to 54%. We've spread them around, as I said, different areas in the country and different sectors in real estate. All of this is completely passive. And I wanted to thank you again. My name is Wolfgang Cease. I will put my information in the chat box, but I also wanted to say that when you're making a large financial decision or doing a large real estate transaction, having a good and reliable team in place is imperative on having that transaction or decision go smoothly. And everybody on this panel is fantastic to work with, and you can't go wrong by using anybody on our panel today. Anyway, thanks again, Carrie, for putting this on today.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Emily Claire. Thank you all. Thank you, Carrie, for having me. And this is definitely a great team to work with. I've appreciated the chance to get to know you as we do these seminars together. And so today I'm going to talk to you about the non-real estate, how the real estate picture fits into your non-real estate investments, because you don't want to have just real estate because you cannot eat a house. You need to have some liquid investments, whether it's for emergency cash or something else to sort of, maybe you're moving money around, but you need to have a variety of different kinds of investments. And so what I do is I help people with their investments, their life insurance, their and their emergency cash, and also their financial plans. So all of this, whether it's your real estate investments or your other types of investments, fit into a plan. And it's really about accomplishing what's most important to you in your life. What is it that you want out of your life that you want the investments to do for you? So I'll just talk a little bit about what I do for clients, and then I'll try to touch on how that helps with the real estate side. So these are the 5 areas that I tend to be helping clients when they're looking for planning for their goals. Planning for retirement. So this is probably the stage when you're building up your real estate investments and also your passive investments. So you might be contributing to 401k at work. You might be contributing to an IRA. You might be doing non-qualified investments, but you're building up your retirement assets for the future. And so I'm helping clients find the most tax advantaged way to do that and follow all of the complicated rules to make sure that, with your CPA, we know that we're doing it the right way. And then I help you determine the investments that go into that. Are you investing too aggressively? Are you investing too conservatively to achieve your goal? And I also help clients handle the market volatility that is part of the process, and stay focused on their long-term goals. Another question that a lot of people have is, am I saving enough? And, will I have enough to retire on? So that's a critical question that I'm answering every day for my clients. So that's preparing for retirement. And then as we transition, this transition from pre-retirement to retirement is a really critical time. Both the let's say 5 years leading up to it and the 5 years after it are especially critical because market volatility can impact your plan for the long term. So I can help you determine how to position your assets to protect them, to make it all the way through this transition so that you can still accomplish what you want to. Once you get to retirement, then we shift the focus. So my retirement, my financial plan includes all of your passive rental income. It includes Social Security, it includes any pensions, it includes your investments, if you want to work in retirement. So it includes all of these things together. One question is, how much can I afford to spend? Another question is, where should I take my money from first? Another question is, how should I allocate my assets now that I'm retired? So I help clients with all of those questions. And again, making sure that you have enough money to live on throughout your retirement and that you can enjoy it without too much worry about that area. And then paying for education. So this is something that I can do this for my clients, for their children, for their grandchildren. This doesn't necessarily relate directly to real estate, but one thing that you might want to know is you can gift 5 years. The gift tax or the gift estate limit is, I think, $15,000. And if you're contributing to a 529 plan for education, you can actually do 5 times $15,000 in 1 year. So if you're looking to transition wealth to another generation or to another person, it is a way to do that. And you can do that a little faster in a one-time plan. So, but paying for education is something that I can do. There's a tax sheltered way to do that. There's other ways to do it as well. Preparing for the unexpected, I think, is really critical for all people and also for real estate owners. So this is an area that I do have clients who have real estate, and I'm talking to them about making sure they have enough cash on hand. I think Jamie might have touched on this, or he has touched on it in the past. You want to have enough emergency cash, and he can help you as a real estate agent determine how much do you need, but you want to have enough emergency cash to cover your emergency needs, also your real estates, right? So that's a critical piece. And then you also want to protect your plan. So if you have a lot of mortgages on your rental properties, you may want to have some life insurance to cover that if you're wanting those to stay within your family or you're wanting to cover the mortgages. You also may want to have a transition plan. So that'll be the estate planning next. But also you want to just kind of plan to protect against any liability. I will mention I also have something called annuities, which are kind of like a pension. They're sort of a crossover between living in retirement and preparing for the unexpected. So if somebody doesn't want to deal with the rental properties anymore, or they want a liquid way to deal with that, annuities are a way to create a passive guaranteed lifetime income stream for retirement. So other things I help with are long-term care planning, but I want to we're going to hear from Sarah next, and she's going to talk about planning for your estate. And this is really critical for property owners because there's a lot of complexity, but it's critical for all of us. Even if you don't have property, you still want to be thinking about how you want to be cared for in your final days, what your choices and your wishes are, and you want to make sure that that gets followed. So what I do for, one thing, for example, that I can do here is if you have, let's say you have a property and you have 3 children, and one of the children is going to take over your real estate business and that property, but the other 2 children aren't. So you can use life insurance as an estate equalization tool to make sure the other 2 children also receive a share of the wealth that you want to pass on to them. Another area that I sometimes can help with property owners is we have Edward Jones Trust Company. So if you want to have a trustee managing your wealth, that can include liquid assets, and it can also include properties. So there's a few different ways that I can help you with your property itself, but mostly my focus is on your financial plan, but I wanted to let you know about those as well. So I know I want to leave time for Sarah, so I'll just very quickly, run through my process. So this is the process I use with every client. First meeting is just to get to know each other and determine if it's a good fit to do the deeper dive. And then after that, we go into the deeper dive. So what are my assets and liabilities? What are my goals and what's my vision for the future? So that's the first meeting. And then a second meeting to talk about a specific proposals and recommendations I have for you. I use Edward Jones investment philosophy. We look at all the investments out there, we vet them, and then we come up with the investments that we think make sense for our clients in today's climate. And then I personalize the portfolio to you. I'm a fan of Whole Foods, so I like to say we're like Whole Foods. There's no MSG in our investment portfolio. And then once somebody becomes a client, I start managing our assets, or I do life insurance or disability insurance for you. And then we'll take on regular reviews. And that's where the real power of the relationship happens, because that's where the ongoing coaching and partnership builds together, and we can create lasting change for you. You're part of a team. So here I am, here's you. Laura is my branch office administrator. So you've got two people locally who know you. I've got the experts in the home office, and then we partner with your local CPA and estate planning attorney, people like Sarah, who you're going to hear from next. And this is what my value proposition is. I want to understand what's most important to you. I use an established process to build a personalized strategy to help you achieve your goals, and we'll partner together throughout your life to help you keep on track. So if you love real estate investing, I'd say that's part of your overall plan. I can help you fit that into the big picture. I love the name of Carrie's business is Big Picture Real Estate. So that's it for now. I will just quickly pull up my contact information, which I'll paste into the chat so that you all have that to see as well. And I'll pass this on to Sarah. I'm just trying to figure out how to stop sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Emily. I'm going to pull up my screen share here. Okay. Great. So good afternoon, everyone. As Emily mentioned, I'm an estate planning attorney with Margolis & Bloom, and I'm going to be rounding out the program today with just a quick look in terms of estate planning and how that fits into being an absentee landlord. So if you already have estate planning documents, we do recommend as estate planners that you review your plan every 5 years or anytime you have any sort of major life transition, which would include buying or selling real estate. In addition, even if you aren't buying or selling real estate, it is a good idea to periodically check your plan and have it reviewed, just to make sure not only is the property passing to your intended beneficiaries in the event of an untimely passing, but also that you're meeting other potential goals during life, such as asset protection and reduction of taxes. If you're paying attention to the news, you might note that there are some potential big changes coming to estate taxes and capital gain taxes. So that's something certainly to be paying attention to, and another reason to periodically review your plan. So a few big traps for the unwary that we see specifically with respect to absentee landlords. First, with respect to asset protection, unfortunately for someone with rental properties, insurance is not always enough in order to cover against a potential lawsuit by a tenant. So I'm going to talk about LLCs briefly as a potential solution. Also, with respect to planning for after your death, although it's unpleasant to think about, you certainly don't want all your hard-earned assets depleted due to, for example, prolonged litigation or other disputes. by your children or other heirs in terms of how to continue managing the real estate. As someone who does both the estate planning and the probate side of things, I do often see long, expensive litigation that could be avoided by having a more robust plan and to have, specifically those conversations between family members in terms of what it's going to look like long term in terms of the management of the real estate. Another thing I just wanted to, quickly flag in terms of titling property is a major part of estate planning and real estate. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon. Something that I see is that even someone with a fairly sophisticated estate plan, they don't have their real estate titled correctly in order to optimize the benefits of that plan. Things like asset protection, estate tax reduction, avoidance of probate, just having the trust is not simply enough. You want to make sure also, for example, that your rental property is actually titled in the name of that trust, or other assets are in that trust. So again, something when you are doing those periodic reviews with your planner to make sure that everything is titled properly, the beneficiaries are updated properly. That's a big part of estate planning that sometimes gets overlooked. So for someone with income producing property, an LLC does typically make the most sense because it can protect personal assets from lawsuits. LLCs can also offer owners privacy since the property can be listed in the name of the company. Trusts are typically more common for property that you don't regularly rent out. However, many property owners do ultimately decide to do a combination of LLCs and trusts, with, for example, the LLC being owned by one or more trusts. So you can actually layer both options. I have listed here a few of the steps involved in setting up an LLC or trust, but I think the most important thing to note is just that it's very important not only to set up the LLC or the trust properly, but also to administer it correctly. So if, for example, with an LLC, if it's proven that you're administering the LLC incorrectly or illegally, your personal assets can still be fair game. So that's something important to remember. I know we're running out of time, so I just wanted to, sort of my big takeaway that I hope, everyone takes at least from this presentation is just that one size does not fit all. And that, when you're going into this, a proper plan, a proper estate plan is really going to look at not only your real estate, but your other assets. It's going to look at your income, your family situation, and almost always in estate planning that there are trade-offs. So there might be a trade-off, for example, between estate taxes versus capital gains taxes. And that's really going to depend on your long-term plans for the property, or also your primary goals coming into estate planning. So if it's more important for you to avoid taxes now, even if that potentially means more taxes for your children, or with respect to a trust, is it more important to have control now or more important to protect the property, for example, against creditors, even if that's at the expense of less control? So although COVID has made many things more difficult, and understandably, most people do not want to be in an attorney's office right now. Luckily, our office, like many other offices that do estate planning, is operating 100% virtually. We can do not only the initial consultation via Zoom, but we can also sign estate planning documents via Zoom as well. I just did 2 signings this morning via Zoom. So here is my contact information. I have my phone number and my email address. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I will add that to the chat box as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, all of the panelists today. I really am so grateful for you sharing your time and your expertise. It's really great to have you guys as a resource to lean into. And I know we are up against the hour, but we would love to answer any questions if there are any while we're all together here. So feel free to either unmute yourself, put your question in the chat. And I also wanted to let you know that some of us are doing, if you want to hear more about 1031 exchanges, we'll be on Clubhouse on Monday at 10:31 a.m. And we'll be talking about the the process and things to know. So probably capital gains tax and things there. So feel free to, if you're on Clubhouse, join us. That should be fun. And of course, as everyone mentioned, we're happy to chat on the phone too. A lot of these things are individual and personal. So we're all very happy to talk with you via phone or email. Great. Well, this has been so informative. Every time we do it, I learn something. Brad is asking, what is Clubhouse? It's an app. It's a social media app that is kind of new and exciting right now, where people talk. It's almost like impromptu podcasts. Like it's all audio. So people are jumping on, talking about various topics, answering questions, and it's kind of very spontaneous. And you just listen. You listen to what's interesting to you. Is that a good description, Wolfgang?
Yes, and in fact, I'm doing one at 2 p.m. today if anybody's interested. But
Good.
no, it's a very informal discussion. It's very interactive, and there's a lot of real estate and financial people speaking in groups that have informative discussions. So, I'm very new to the platform, so I'm by no means an expert, but it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's a large web of people that are involved in real estate and investing, and it's kind of fascinating.
Somebody described it, I think, as like listening to the radio. So you can kind of like tune in to different people talking live.
Yes, yes, it's kind of like podcasts in a way, but interactive. So.
What is the, Brad also wants to know what's the topic of the 2 p.m.?
It's real estate and 1031s, and I'm doing it with a colleague in New York and several colleagues in New York. So it's just real estate and 1031s, and yeah, you can hear me talk again if you'd like,
Awesome.
But it's there's no visuals, so it's very casual, and it's just people talking and raising their hands and asking. So it's kind of just a group discussion. It's not structured.
Yeah. Cool. And I'll of course be sending out the recording to everyone who registered today. And if there are any other resources that anyone needs, feel free to reach out too. I know all of us are pretty connected, and we know people from CPAs to, real estate attorneys to mortgage lenders and everyone in between. So again, the team concept is just so critical. So as you're building out your own dream team, just feel free to reach out. Great. Well, unless there's any other questions, I think we'll sign off for today. Again, thank you for everyone's time. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully sometime this year we can maybe do this in person. That would be really fun.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, have some food and beverages. It'd be great. I would love it.
That sounds great.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.